Quite a few of you were asking about the tray that I made in one of the videos earlier in the year on the HeatForm leather. So I thought it'd be nice to do a little tutorial on that one. So this is a little mini version, which I've dyed with yellow and a little bit of gold. But, this is a blue one with silver. And you can hear how hard it sets. You can feel the rigidity of it. Sorry, you can see where my hands were dyeing the yellow one a little bit earlier. So this is made from an A3 piece of the HeatForm leather, which we have here. So starting with this and turning into this. Cool, eh? And I've used the medium weight for these. So these are online, and you'll see these just if you type HeatForm A3, they'll come up, but I'll put the link in the video below. The little one is made from half, so you could get 2 trays out of one piece like that. So what I'm going to do for the demonstration is I'm going to show you how I measure out to make the tray, but I'm going to actually finish off the demonstration with the little one because it will stay on the camera a bit better. So let's get started. Okay, so the tools we're going to need for this: a ruler. Now the steel square is brilliant for this, and you'll see why in just a moment. A knife. There's not very much cutting, a small bit, but so a good knife. I'm using my favourite Shing knife at the moment, online. You'll need a hole punch for the rivet holes, and you'll need a rivet setter. Now I've used either the large single cap rivets, or I've used the traditional Align 14 in the long ones, so that I can then, depending how thick the leather is that you've chosen, you can just snip it down and get it to fit. So you'll need the setting tool size 9, which also does size 14 decorative traditional rivets, or you'll need the standard rivet setter. And lastly, the other thing you'll need is a scrap tool, just a simple something to score with. So we're going to start with this. For the large one, I take the easiest way to do it. It's 4 centimeters, which it so happens that this ruler is. So I can just use this and not worry about measuring too much. So if I place this down on here, and I've got the grain side up. Now it is waxy, so your ruler will slide a little bit. So just go slow and score. So I'm just going to put a score line in, which I don't know if it will show up brilliantly well on there, but it is there. I'll make it a bit deeper and then hopefully it'll show in just a moment. So I'm just going to go across now, keeping the right angles. And these long ones on the long edge, you can go quite deep with and go all the way along. Now hopefully this is going to start showing up quite nicely. Well, you know, kind of. And then I'm going to do the same the other side. Okay, so you're scoring into the kind of wax surface, but also a little bit deeper into the leather as well. I'm just going to make sure I've gone right to the edges. So I've now got 2 lines right across, fairly deeply scored. Now for the next bit, we want to create this sort of handle section. So for that, we're going to go on the 4 centimeters, but I'm just going to mark off without scoring all the way down. I'm just going to mark off on the edge bit here. So just on this line in between those 2 lines, just to give me a little guide. And then I'm going to move the ruler down another 4 centimeters, like so. And that's where I'm going to put my score in. So essentially it's 8 centimeters. I think the template might say 9, which just gives you a bit more of a room for curving over, and that was partly because I did it on a really thick piece of leather, so I needed more room for it to bow round, but I've decided that it works quite well and is a little bit easier to manage on the more medium weight leather. The thick leather does give you a really nice kind of chunky tray, but it's not really critical. So let's just pop this in, and as I say, just watch for any slippage. It's fairly forgiving, so if you use quite light marks when you're just doing the marking out, it will kind of, once you heat it, it will kind of melt away. Okay, and again, I'm taking these edge to edge. So I've now got 4 heavy score lines. A little bit awry there, so I'm just going to correct that. I like to leave you in my mistakes, just so that you can see how I remedy them. Okay, so we've now got 4 lines, top and bottom, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut this length here, so just that one length there. You've already got a channel line grooved. If you want, you can just use the awl to just keep scoring through that a little bit deeper, which will give you a bit more of a channel. When you're cutting thick leather, this is quite a good tip for allowing the knife blade to sit in and work through those fibres. So I'm just going to pop the knife in here, and I'm just going to work through. I'm using fairly light strokes, not putting too much pressure through, just because I want to be in control because of the wax finish. Make sure I'm staying in my groove. Okay, and I'm just going to test that up. Nice clean edge, because this is such a great knife. Okay, so do all 4 corners. Okay, and these are done. We're going to put in a hole on each of those corner bits. So to do that, I've got my stone and my poundo board. It's a bit well loved, as you can see. Probably time to get a new one. But there. So I'm marking it by eye. So halfway along and probably about a centimetre and a half in, 2 centimetres in. I'm just going by eye for this, but you can measure it. So you want it to be in the middle of here and about 2 centimetres in. And let's give that a tap. I have waxed this punch, by the way. I like to do that with these punches to just protect them. Some sharp, they also pull in and out easily of the leather. Okay, now you might be wondering why we're not putting a matching one in on here. Generally, because leather's thick and it has slight variance in thicknesses, this can alter the pattern markings. So what I tend to like to do is to make it all up, and then while it's hot from when we're heat forming, which we'll see in a moment, we'll work out where the next hole is. So we're just going to do those 4 holes for now. Now you can colour it. So I'll do that on a separate little inset, because I need to set up to be a bit messy. To that, I'll show you how to do the measuring up on the small. So on the small one, the easiest thing to do is to just use this edge of the ruler. So again, exactly the same principle, but you're just using that smaller edge. So everything is a little bit more scaled down. So again, you're doing the long edge, and again, you're watching for the ruler sliding or your awl sliding. So take it slow, slower than I'm going probably. And I'm just going to level that up a little bit there. Sometimes when you get carried away and you go off the edge, when you've got something slippy, you can take that control as you get to the edge ends. So again, we're using the thin part of the ruler. Went slowly that time. And now I've got my line marked, I can go back over and make that a little deeper. And again, I'm going to do my double little section. Mark two, it's just going to pop a mark in there, and then I can use the long part of the ruler. Now from this you can see how you could scale it up or down to make all sorts of different size ones. I think these little ones will make really good kind of gin trays or cocktail trays. Could be a nice gift at Christmas with a couple of miniatures and a glass. Maybe that's just me. So, excuse my hands before I start. And I'm not going to put gloves on. I suggest that you do if you're doing any dyeing. Now, any of the dyes and stains and colours will work on this. There is a wax layer. If you're using any of the solvent dyes, it's going to penetrate through quite well. It does disturb the wax a little bit. It's obviously going to cause it to break down, which is going to affect your heat and rigidity afterwards. So I have done it with both, but I prefer to use the water base. The water base will sit a bit more lightly and take a little bit more time to get through the colour. And obviously with the stains, they can be on the lighter colours. They are a bit more translucent, so depending on the colour that you get sent of these, you'll get a different kind of shade. So some of them do come out quite dark, so you might just want to bear that in mind when you're thinking about your end colour. I would say think of it fairly organically, and don't be too beholden to having a really clear image in your head of what the final colour will be. It's a natural product, it's got variations, and it's going to kind of part of its sort of charm in a way that you end up with this kind of varying kind of pattern on it. So I'm going to use, for this one, I thought I'd do some green. Why not? Green seems like it will go nicely on top of this beigey tone. So with these water stains, always give them a really good shake. They have wax content in that can sit and clap around, so you want to get it really mixed in. I'm going to pop some in a dish rather than take it from the bottle to avoid contaminating my bottle. So I have it in a dish, and I have a little piece of my cut and use foam pad, which I love for doing this kind of work. It keeps it nice and flat, it doesn't take up too much of the dye. I'm just going to dab it in and then just take off a little bit of the excess. And then really I'm just working over. So I'm working in circles. Now in this instance, so normally when you're working, you might want to have your leather damp so you don't get kind of a solid first line, but in this it's sitting on the top anyway because of the wax content as I'm moving it around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build up a few layers and let it work its way through. So I'm not worried if it doesn't look very vivid green at this point. Mostly at this section I want to just get a colour base on before we heat. The heat action itself is going to darken the leather. Now I'm going to go around and do my edges again. I love this, so quick. Take a little bit more and just get all those edges done. Now, the reason that we did all the cutting first is so that we can then pull these up and you can get the dye in between. Now, you might want a little paintbrush or something to get right into the cracks, but just get as much down into there as you can. And you can see it's already beginning to take a bit of shape just by bending up a little. So, like so. Now again, you can see probably from the camera I have streaks appearing on it. which is why I have some paper towels handy. So again, like I say, it's sitting on the top a bit. Let's just move that around over the top and even it out. Lovely. I quite like when I'm doing these trays to sort of get a bit of an ombre effect where the corners and the ends are. So what I might do when I come to give my second coat is maybe mix a little bit of black in so I can get a slightly darker. I'll use my same sponge but just add a tiny bit of black to the pot. Now to do the back, I'm just going to give the top a little bit of a wipe off so it doesn't stick too much and pick up anything from underneath. I'm using some greaseproof paper underneath. So just lift off anything that's just sitting on the top for now. That will cause it to blob and mark. And then we'll turn it over. Now to turn it over and do the back, you can just go straight with the dye, but it does take quite a lot of it. So I tend to thin it down with a little bit of water. So I haven't got some to hand, so I'm going to just show you what it looks like when you put it on neat. So it goes quite heavy on the back. So you can see it's taking up quite a lot of the dye. This is a split leather, so we're now working on something where we haven't got a wax on the top surface. The waxes do go all the way through the leather, so what you'll see when we come to put the heat onto the back here that it will darken very quickly, but this actual surface has got more of the fibres showing free. You can start to see it looks a little patchy there, which is not a problem. It will dry back out. A lot of the time with these water-based, a lot of those marks are the liquid water changing the colour of the leather, and as it dries back you tend to see what the reality is. So we'll just get this done. But what I'll probably do is I'll probably spray a little bit of mist water over and then just give it a little secondary coat just to even a little bit, but I'm not worried about those streaks for now, so I'm just using up all the dye in the bowl here. Should just about have enough. There we go. And now I'm just going to go and double check all of those insides. See, I've missed a bit there. I kind of want to get all those bits because it's easier to do this now than later. And I'm just going to run it over my edges just one more time just to make sure it's neat. Now, some people will be asking about the edge treatment as well. I'm not going to do anything right now, but once it's all finished and heated, you can run a little bit of wax on your finger over the edge and then just slick into it and you get a really nice burnish. Don't need to do anything more than that. I wouldn't try and bevel it. I would just try and round it off with the wood slicker tool and some wax. And make a good cut in the first place. Okay, so that's actually taking some colour now. And that's the back. So now to heat it. I'm going to put some more colour on after I've heated it, but at this point I just want to get the shape and get everything in, and then I can just finesse it a little bit. You can do a little bit more here. If you're starting to go to things like paints and putting gold and things on, I would do it after you've heated. You don't want to interfere with that with a heat gun. You can use a hairdryer for this next stage or a heat gun. So we'll go and get that ready now. So this is just a craft gun, so it's not overly hot. It's 230 volt, so it gets pretty hot, but it's not like an industrial heat gun that you'd use to strip paint off or anything like that. I've never tried it for that. So it is more of a craft gun, the sort of thing you can get in Hobbycraft. You can use a hairdryer. The reason I quite like this is it's not blowing, which the hairdryer does. It's just heat direction. So yeah, hot air gun if you like, heat gun. So it's a bit noisy. I'm going to turn it on in a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat from here and here, and then just get those folds in and then go and do these sides. And I'll also, when I do this one, I'm just going to let the heat go all the way onto there so that I can bend that over. So we want to see the wax go dark, which we should see quite nicely. Let's give it a go. Okay, now you should start to feel it's gone really, really quite floppy here now. So I'm going to turn it and work from this top end. So I'm going to fold it over and just set the crease, putting some pressure through my fingers just to set that while it's soft. So I'm starting with that one. And then I'm going to do the same for the side that I heated, which is that one. Now I find it easier to work with heating it from the back. You can heat it from the front, but you tend to get the waxes moving around a lot, which you then kind of need to wipe around to get them to set to dry again evenly. So I prefer to work from the back. Okay, so I've now got this. I'm going to fold the bend in nice on that crease, get it nice and tight, like so, and the other end while it's soft. Now don't worry if it starts to harden up. If you're paying more attention to one end, you can just go back and heat it again. I'm going to tuck that behind and start my handle curve, like so. Okay, so you can start to see I'm getting a nice corner going in there. And then just continue round until you've got all of those done. So I'm just holding this bit down on these two edges I've got in now, just as it's beginning to cool off. It sets really quickly, so you don't have to be doing that, holding that shape for long, but it's just worth holding for a minute or so, just to let the shape set in. Just giving it a little press. Okay, and one thing you might like to do is just to make sure you've got this setting straight before while it's set. So sometimes it stretches as you're manipulating it, so give it a little pull and make sure those corners are tucked in. Now, while it's still soft, I'm going to use this opportunity to get a position for my other holes. So I'm going to go back to my scratch awl and I'm going to go through the hole I made originally, and I'm going to make sure they're pulled over nice and tight for that corner, and then pierce through to make a mark. I'm going to go round all of them. Okay, now if I lift those back, I've got the holes. Now, while it's still got a bit of memory and it's still a bit soft, I can flatten it out to get the holes in quickly while it's still soft and malleable. And it's easier to do it this way than to try and work on it once it's set. So we've got those in, and we just go back to reshaping that now. It will have, as I say, developed some memory for where it was, so it won't take very long to get that back into position. And if you need to, as I say, if there's anything that's got squished or squashed, you can reheat and reposition to get it how you want. Okay. So now I'm just going to do a little bit of extra painting on it. So I think I'm going to try and make this, as I said, a little bit ombre on the edges with a little bit of the dark. And I don't know, I can't help myself, but I'm just loving these metallic gold paints so much. I end up just putting them on everything. But yeah, I'll come back and show you the final riveting. Okay, so I've done my colouring, I've done some extra paint detail, I've done some gold, well that's copper actually, onto the edge here to trim it. I'm now going to put my rivets in. Now, you've got kind of some angles to work with here. If you're using the standard rivets, these are the single cap, so these have a little divot in the end here. So the easiest thing to do with this is to pop them through. And we do these in different finishes. We have antique copper, which if I had a long one here, probably would maybe go to use. So you're going to push it through so that you can see the little head is poking through there, and we're going to clip the cap in place. They should clip together. There we go. You'll hear a little clip, or you'll feel it connect. Okay, so you can get all 4 of those in, and then you can actually go to your slab and position it over like so, and then use your rivet tool from there to hit down, and that should work fine for setting those. If you want to do the traditional rivets, which do look really nice, you need to kind of work the other way around. So it depends how you want it to look. Some people really like to have the more knobbly bit on that side, in which case that will make your life a lot easier. But I want to kind of have the flat bit here, so I've just got to work with it with my slab right to the edge here. And actually I tend to use my smaller slab for this because it will sit inside of here. But you're going to position this over to the edge here and maybe put another weight on here so it doesn't pop off the table. And then with these, there's another video which shows you how to put these on, but you grab your washer, which are all in the bottom. You always sink to the bottom, there we go. You grab your little washer and that goes over the top of the rivet like so, and then you use this different setting tool. So this one has a little hole in it here, and you drive that down over that washer, and that is really great for any thickness of leather. You don't need to kind of worry about which size rivet you're using. It will all just kind of come together. So you're going to drive that down, snip it off, and then give it a smash to round it over. So that's how you do those. As I say, watch the other video for that. I'll put the link in for the next video. And that's it, done. To finish, I like to use the perma coat, a couple of coats of it. They're perfect for cold drinks. They're fine for warm drinks. For really hot drinks, straight out of the kettle, the heat of the cup, if it's left too long in contact with, you might get some of the wax remelting. If that happens and you start getting a few rings on your tray, just go back to your heat gun and blast them out. They pretty much disappear again after that. The Perma coat will bond and help protect that from heat. What I tend to do with mine is if I'm just got my teapot and it's fresh out and I want to keep it hot, I just put a little cloth underneath it. But they other than that, they're quite functional for little drinks trays and, as I say, kind of cocktail trays. Maybe later. Okay, let me know how you get on. Let's see your creations. Thanks so much for watching.